Are we live? I think we're live. What's going on, everybody? Hopefully, all doing well this Wednesday evening for the podcast. It's live stream. As always, Scott Carson. Excited to be here with you guys today, tomorrow, later this evening, whenever you guys are watching the replay, if you're joining us live. Thank you for everybody joining us live here, whether it's here live on Zoom or watching it on the different Facebook groups out there. Before we introduce our special guest, a couple of little things I just want to go through with you guys, as always. Big thank you to Podcast Business Journal for being a sponsor of these and helping promote it. You can check it out at podcastbusinessjournal.com. Great articles there. It's such a wealth of information. I was very honored today to actually post a little thing about us hitting 500 episodes with an Up Closer show as of yesterday. So, yeah, we're excited about that. Ed and his whole team do an amazing job over there as well, but they've got such great podcasters providing little tips and nuggets here and there. Well worth checking it out. And you know what? It's free. It doesn't cost anything to sign up for. So check it out, podcastbusinessjournal.com. Now, I have had quite a few people reach out to me the last few weeks who are enjoying these calls and our guests and the topics we're going through and want to know, man, how can I kind of tap in to more things? Well, you can first, join the Syntax Podcasters Facebook group. You can join the Syntax Podcasters Meetup group, but we do have an event coming up that I really want to share with you guys a little bit here in September. It's the PodCamp Mastermind. It's actually taking place on International Podcast Day on the September 30th and then October 1st down in Orlando, down at the Coronado Springs Resort there, right outside of Epcot. And so we're calling this the PodCamp Mastermind. Really excited because we're basically wanting to bring 50 to 100 very serious podcasters together for 2 days of networking, roundtable, fellowship, and really masterminding. It's not, will not be a pitch fest. This is not a expo. It's literally people coming together to share their best practices. And we're limited to 100 people max. If it's 50 podcasts or 75 podcasters, great. But we want to really draw from each other out there. And I'm a big believer that we all have a message and all have a lot of gifts. And we all have some sort of thing that we're doing to help us boost our podcast. Hey, why not share best practices with everybody else in the room? Because I don't think anybody's stealing anybody's audience. So it's tools, tips, trade craft. Like I said, September 30th, October 1st. It is a Monday and Tuesday. We have a very special thing Monday night with a VIP red carpet dessert party at Epcot Center, actually, for the last night that they're going to have celebrations, I guess is the name of the fireworks display. So Steph has actually reserved a spot for a VIP party for 150 people. So if you got your family, kids, and they want to come, they can. They don't have to sit there in 2 days with you. They can come in at night, hang out, have dessert, see the fireworks, and enjoy the rest of the day at the resort. But it's usually $6.99 is what we've been charging for two people. We're doing a very special thing. If you're watching this, we do have a room block at Coronado Springs. Great stuff. We have a website up probably the next day or so before the week is out. But if you go to podcastmm.com and go to the website to that, it'll automatically knock $200 off if you sign up tonight. And it's, we're talking, it's 54 days out, 53 days out roughly. We would love to have you there if you've got a podcast. Now, if you don't have a podcast you're looking to start, it's probably not going to be a fit for you. But if you do have a podcast, whether you're into it for 10 episodes or 1,000 episodes, I think a lot of people can learn a lot of things out there. So we're excited about that. Got some comments here from people out here. Hi, Lucy. Hey, Michelle, how's it going? If you go to podcastmm.com as a website, she'll take you to the checkout page. Should automatically knock $200 off there. Would love to have you. That's good for you plus a guest. Bring your co-host. Bring somebody who's on your team, your marketing expert, or bring yourself and come spend, make 50 new best friends in the podcast industry for 2 days. Tom, you have something?
I think it's podcastmm.com, not podcast, isn't it? Because that's where I get to the infusion sauce.
Oh, you know what? I think you're right. I did get that wrong, didn't I?
I think it's podcastmm.com, in case any people are trying to go there right now.
My bad. Crap. That would help.
Sorry.
I have the
Normally, I would not derail. You're in the groove. You're doing it. I don't want to take you out of your game, but I tried to go to it, and I remember doing it myself, and it won't get people to where they need to go. So I thought I would.
No, it's. You're right. I think it is PodCamp Mastermind.
PodCamp MM. I just did it. Yeah, on my phone. And I know I signed up. I mean, I signed up as a sponsor way back.
You're good to go to it.
And I'm dying to go. I can't wait to go. It's going to be a blast, really.
So Go back here. Go to podcampmm.com. Sorry. Podcampmm.com. Because that's what it is. We have the podcast MM is supposed to be forwarded to the new website. I just changed it the other day. That's exactly what it is. Anyway, go to podcampmm.com and you'll get signed up there easily with the checkout page. But anyway, we will not have a live stream next Wednesday night. Originally, Gabriel Luisi, who's great with memberships and stuff like that, had agreed to be on here, and I agreed with him too. And then I realized, oh, hey, I'm not going to be in Austin. I'm going to be at Podcast Movement next Wednesday night for the next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We fly in Tuesday. So if you're going to be in Orlando for Podcast Movement, hey, reach out to me. Send me a message. Send me a text. Love to meet up. I'd love to get a group photo with a bunch of people out there. Usually Podcast Movement is pretty good at having some roundtables where people can chill and network. And so I'm just going to plan on next Wednesday night, roughly, to be hanging out there at one of the roundtables and chilling with everybody. So question, comment here from anybody? Yeah, thanks, Tom, for putting that in there. Appreciate it so much.
My pleasure.
And you know what's great about being in Orlando? Orlando next week. It's nice and warm. But you also know about being in Orlando in September and October. It's also warmer than everywhere else in the country for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, the end of September. That'll be
exactly,
nice.
Exactly. But anyway, let's welcome our special guest, our buddy here, 10 plus years experience in podcasting, done an amazing job. He actually owns the largest podcast production team in the country, working with more podcasters helping produce their shows than anybody else, which was exciting to find that out. He is a marketing expert and a branding expert as well. Definitely a podcast production expert. And over the last 3 years has really built Podetize into a big name in the industry. He's the CEO and founder of Podetize.com. Our good buddy, obviously. You see him here. Tom Hazzard is there for you guys out there. So what is going on, Tommy boy? How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. So you guys, obviously, you have a little bit of bias towards last week's guests, too, with Tracy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I have to say, I was not able to listen in on that one, so I hope I'm not too repetitive. Usually Tracy's got different things she talks about. Was she talking about publicity maybe, or what were you guys?
We talked about branding and publicity last week.
Okay,
so that's why we were like, hey, let's make sure you talk about production value and things like that. So you have a PowerPoint you want to bring up, Tom, or you want to leave this at first, or how do you want to do it?
You know what? I'd be happy to bring up a PowerPoint and share. Hold on, I gotta get out of full screen mode here. But yeah, sure. What I'd like to share are really the top 12 things that maybe you didn't do with your podcast or aren't doing that could make the biggest difference in your in the effectiveness of your podcast. It depends what you're trying to do and get out of it, obviously. But yes, I'll get that up while we're talking. So don't have too much dead air. He says, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Well, production people, this is one thing everybody always asks. Like I'm a part of you Feed Your Brand, and you have your coaching calls every Wednesday. We were on there earlier today, and you're talking about microphones and errors and stuff like that. And people are asking, should they use headphones and what kind of microphone, and if the Yeti's still a good one or not, and go from there. So,
yeah. So we were definitely talking about more tech stuff today, which we have on that call right now at Podetize. We have a lot of newbies and new podcasters who are either have just launched their show or are looking to launch their show very soon. And so that's why I decided to do a little bit of and we do different themes of calls like every week. This week was the tech theme. So we were talking about equipment and environment and some of those things because we get a lot of questions. Should I record video? Should I just do it as audio? What are the pros and cons? How hard is it to do? And then we even had, obviously it was great to have you there, Scott, because you're very experienced. But we had another rather experienced member who was asking a question about headsets and earbuds and things, and do you really need to use them anymore? And I was pointing out, actually, and this is a great example right now, Scott, because you're not using any. You're hearing me over your PC speaker, and I am using some. For me, it's just a preference. Right now, I like hearing you really well and not hearing other ambient noises around and getting distracted by them. But the question was, is it really necessary to record good quality? And I really don't think it's that necessary anymore. It's more of a preference because the technology, the software, especially if you're using a tool like Zoom that we're using right now, it's gotten better and better. It used to be that if you recorded with an open mic and an open speaker like you are, that my voice coming out of your speaker would go back into your mic and create an echo. But I think everybody can hear, as we're talking here on Zoom, Zoom software is handling that. And I don't hear any echo. Do you?
No, sir.
No.
Nope, not at all. Just the
All
echo
right.
in my head.
Hey, did Tracy put up a link to a quiz at the beginning of her thing last week?
Did,
so
yes.
so I won't redo that. I'm gonna jump. Well, I'm gonna give you a couple of pieces of information. So I'm gonna launch my.
While you're doing that, why don't you share what
slides.
Podetize is, Tom? Talk about some of the things you do there if it's not on your slides.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so Podetize is both not only a production company that does done for you production for everything from video to audio, syndicating that as podcasts or as a video channel, and then more importantly, converting it into written content for your website, written blog post, companion to every episode. And I'm not talking about your typical summary show notes type of post. I'm talking about long form content that actually in many ways has a lot more value than the podcast episode does, because it keeps working for you and Google ends up using it to drive a lot of traffic to your website. And, it's funny how many, I often meet podcasters, who just don't care anything about their website. Yeah, it's not important. I've got a podcast. I don't need a website. Or I've got a website. I've got this Libsyn page or this Podbean page. That's my website for my podcast.
Or Wix. I've heard that a lot. Wix pages.
Well, Wix, that's a whole nother thing. Don't get me started on what website platform to use for your website. I was talking about, though, some of the other podcast platforms that are hijacking your authority by, they present it as, oh, we can provide you a webpage for your podcast. No problem. You don't have to worry about it. We make it really easy. And they do make it easy. But it's Libsyn.com. It's Podbean.com. It is not your website. And that web traffic is benefiting them, not you, or certainly benefiting them more than it does you. So we don't recommend that. You want to have your own website that is the hub of information, the home base for your podcast, and having the blog content on there as well as your podcast. It pulls unique visitors, thousands and thousands. What did we look at your website last week, Scott? It was over 9,000 or 10,000 unique visitors a month from Google search coming to your website because of the written content for each episode. And that's the kind of power it has. These are, if people they know they're going to listen to a podcast, they'll go search in iTunes, they'll go search in Spotify, wherever they want to listen to their podcast from. But you don't know who they are. And those searches are only going to search on what's in the title or in the description of your either whole show or each episode. What you say within the episode is locked into that. It's blind to that search. So that's why we convert everything to a comprehensive written post. Put it on your website. That's the big differentiator for us as a company. We're a digital marketing company. We're just using podcasting and video as the starting point. And then we are also a podcast hosting platform. So Podetize, as the name might suggest, allows you to monetize your show from episode 1 by putting your own promotions, ads for whatever products, services, masterminds, courses, books, events that you have to be able to sell and promote to your audience. And don't get me wrong, you're going to provide real value in your show, but why not, if that show is in alignment with your business, why not promote what you have to sell and do it in a way that ad doesn't live there forever. And that's what we do at Podetize. At our premium level, we have a dynamic ad insertion system that you can put as many ads as you want across all your episodes or certain episodes. Things that are relevant now may not be relevant 2-3 months from now. If you edit them in, they live there forever, and you're kind of stuck, or you have to spend all this time editing them out, which is a pain. Our system, you upload them once, every episode gets marked where ads can go, push a button, they go there. Anybody who streams or downloads it from that point on, here's those current promotions, and then next month, next week, whenever you want to change it, you can either remove them or you can upload ads and simultaneously replace them, whatever is going to work for you. So nobody ever listens to an old episode hearing an old, outdated ad. Scott, how many people do you hear that are going back and listening to your early episodes of your podcast?
I hear some people have gone back, and surprisingly, when I ran a search checking what the most top 10 downloads is, like the first 3 episodes are all in the top 10.
That's right. And that's very common among podcasters. And I think your show may be a little different because you have so many stinking episodes now. I mean, 500, so you've got a couple different feeds, right, of different shows. So you may be a little unique, but the average show we find on their monthly play statistics, fully 60%, 60 to 65% of their monthly plays or downloads are coming from episodes they published in previous months, not the current new episodes this month. So if you're selling advertising only on 35% to 40% of all of your plays, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to reach people, and your advertisers are missing out on reaching a lot more people. So why not have ads that are current and relevant across all episodes? That's really, and that was the mother of the invention. There was Tracy saying to me when we had our own podcast, we were taking advertisers and we were only selling, a fraction of our capacity, right? Of our sort of virtual real estate for ads on our plays. Just, so why can't we put them on all of them? Well, we'd have to edit them out. Well, that's dumb. Why do we have to do that? Tom, figure out a way to do that. And then obviously I went and we figured it out. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's Podetize. We're definitely all about supporting you to get the most out of your show, to market and grow your brand or your business. And a big difference between us and everybody else is that we are making you the center of influence, giving you all the value and all the credit. We're not trying to steal your authority. There are lots of others that do. And I'm actually going to illustrate that in part of my little presentation. So let me share my screen now. And let's see, I guess I got to do that one. Scott, can you see that?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
All right. Tracy might have used this slide too, but it's a good one to start with, even if she did. So, this is why we're so passionate about what we do. I get really jazzed about talking about these things because it's really hard for us all to be heard out there among all of these YouTube channels. I mean, look at that, 80 million, 40 million Facebook pages, all those Twitter users, 800 million Instagram users. When you post something on your social media feed, you usually are only getting about 1.3% of people seeing it, whereas on Google, getting leads to jump from Google to your website or wherever you're sending people is more than 10 times that. And in terms of, well, actually here I want to just share quickly, this is one of my first podcasts. We've had over 550 episodes and we're kind of have gone dark on it now. It was in a niche area of 3D printing. It's called WTFFF. That's because FFF stands for fused filament fabrication, which is the geeky term for 3D printing. And that was on purpose because if you didn't know what WTFFF was, if you didn't laugh at that, then you probably weren't our right fit listener. And people who really knew something about 3D printing and could benefit from the show would know it. That was sort of our thought. So this is the show that started it all for us, and we monetized it very well. We had over 100,000 monthly listeners at its peak, and even still today, we're getting more than 50,000 even listening to all the old stuff. So don't underestimate the power of your content if it's evergreen to continue getting a lot of play. One other thing that we really love to do with podcasting, and there may be some of you out there doing this, but podcasting is really the gateway to a lot of incredible things. My partner, Tracy, she got a speaking opportunity from her podcast, and she got to then, from that speaking event, was seen by an editor at Inc. magazine who approached her after her speech and said, hey, would you write a column for Inc.com and on a regular basis? And she's been doing it for now 4 or 5 years. But it's podcasting can be a gateway to so many things, speaking from the stage, writing a book, and it really can be done as easily as just recording like we're doing, Scott. I mean, this is the second time we've done a show today, but all of these things can be repurposed into a book or, put it out as video. We have a lot of clients that every year put out a new book from their podcast. They just edit them differently. And then authority-wise, Tracy probably shared this, but I'll just do it real quick because it's pretty cool. We keep starting new podcasts every year. And because we want to make sure we are completely hyper-aware of what's working today, not just what worked 5 or 6 years ago or 10 years ago. So Tracy started this show called The New Trust Economy on January 20th. It's in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. And one of her first guests had a PR agent who was involved with Larry King. And after they heard her episode early in late January, they called her up in mid-February and said, hey, can you be on a panel on the Larry King Now show and for blockchain? And she couldn't be there, but she could Skype in. You see her up in the upper right on the screen there. She Skyped in. This was her show with her co-host, Monica Prophet. I'm not a part of this show, but it really builds authority very quickly. Podcasters are like the new celebrities. Scott, how many times do you watch any of the late night shows like Jimmy Fallon or
I watch some of them, yeah, definitely. And it seems everybody's getting a podcast. Everybody's got we go to a lot of comedy clubs. We've been to the Capital City Comedy Club here, and everybody in the last 4 weeks has been, hey, check out my podcast. I got 10 episodes. Check out my podcast. I just launched it.
Yeah. Well, every week, not a week goes by that on each of those shows there isn't at least one podcast guest.
Yeah.
Podcast hosts are the new authority figures, and also celebrities that are being brought on. It gives you so much credibility, can boost you in so many ways. And so Tracy, 1 month from January 20th to February 20th went from launching a new show to then getting exposure to Larry King's producer and being invited onto this panel 1 month into it. Now, Tracy has a little bit more higher profile than a lot of people because she has an Inc. column that gives her credibility and other things like that. It all came from podcasting. So she might have gotten a little faster boost on this one than most people do so quickly after they start a show. But still, she was not an expert in blockchain or cryptocurrency before, researching to launch this show. But she became an authority very quickly. All right, so back to some of the stats. I don't know if all you're aware, but there's more than 700,000 podcasts worldwide, but only 140,000 or so are active. That means they've either pod faded or, they're just no longer publishing new episodes for whatever reason. But they're still out there. You can still download them, but only 140,000 are publishing new episodes on a regular basis or have published one in the last, several months, I think. That's a much smaller pond to play in than, remember, we had 80 million, YouTube channels and all those other stats there. And you know how many websites there are? There's over 1.5 billion websites out there.
Wow.
Now, part of what we do helps tip the odds in your favor with creating the blog posts that rank in Google search and bring people to your site. But that's precisely why you need to do that, because expecting your website to rise to the top among 1.5 billion just on its own without putting content on it that's relevant to what people are searching on is really hard to do. Easier to be heard in a podcast as long as people are looking for one, though. So the old school of podcasting, what we talk about is that the old school, it was all about you. And it was okay to do it yourself. It's okay to record in your car and just post it up without doing any editing. And also the old school would say it's really easy to generate passive income from your podcast. Unfortunately, I'm here to share with you that that's really not the case anymore. The new school, I'm sorry, I forgot. Let me tell you why it doesn't work. Well, because listeners are more savvy. There are many more of them, and they are more savvy. They want to listen to good quality content. They get tired of content that the quality isn't what it should be. There's background noise, there's ambulance sirens, there's all sorts of things. You have a lot more competition out there, not only from independents, but there's a lot more large media outlets putting up professional shows. The media ad model is broken with other forms of media distribution. I mean, how many of us don't have DVRs today and zip through commercials, right? So the great thing about podcasting, while you can skip, it's harder to do, especially while you're driving or at the gym. Most people just listen all the way through. And there are organizations that are paying for listeners to acquire listeners. You may not realize it, but if you ever were on Anchor and they were monetizing your shows, they actually got caught or got outed recently for they did bring advertisers to the platform that would advertise on your show and you'd get some revenue for it, but they were actually paying the advertisers to advertise on their shows. And then they were taking their investment money and paying podcast creators for the listens that went on their shows. And so they were trying to prove to the world that they could get a lot of people on the platform quickly and that you could advertise well. Well, that paying for listeners didn't really work in the long run, and it wasn't sustainable. And then passive income was easy if you were an early entrant like Pat Flynn or John Lee Dumas, but replicating what they did, not everybody can do that. It's very hard to do, in fact. So the new school is it's not all about me. You need to serve. You need to provide quality content and serve a community. That has to be what we believe, especially podcasting for marketing or growing your brand or your business. You have to make it about them. What is in it for the listener? And then they will come. And then, you want a more professional show. We highly recommend professional production. If you can't do that early on, you can certainly bootstrap it or spend time learning editing yourself. Although if you're in business, I would suggest your time is better spent doing your primary business and not actually editing audio and putting it out there. And of course, the new school is about influence and authority. You're podcasting your way to influence and authority. So now some examples. This is you can tell Tracy made this slide. It's about creating a bigger platform, right? You want to be seen, heard, and found. You need a bigger platform. I keep telling her I need to get a photo of myself taken like on stilts or something, right? That's what I should put in here. I don't know if I'd dress up as a clown though. So anyway, brand casting, as we call it, it's not just podcasting, it's brand casting because it's also about, your website, your entire platform. You got to set up your show properly. You got to be bot friendly. We live in a bot infested world and we just need to accept it. You've got to be seen by the algorithms. Audience focused, I mentioned again, it's not about you, it's about them. Having the right equipment, yes, and it's not as complicated as it used to be. Professional quality, your authority is the big difference, okay? And people will respect your authority if you serve them and be audience focused. And then measure it. We're all about data and measuring it. Everything we do is very measurable. The follow-up is an exciting part, and getting your guests, if you interview guests, or getting your guests or others to promote you. We're going to talk about quickly how that works. Why is there it is. All right, so get your face off your cover art. This is the biggest rookie error. I'm going to go through, I think it's 10 or 12 quick things here. Get your face off your cover art. I'm always afraid one of these people is going to be in the audience when I'm speaking or out here on Zoom. I hope not, or maybe on Facebook. I'll get outed eventually. One of these people will be there. But here's the thing. Unless you're a nationally recognized celebrity, your face on your cover art is making it all about you. Not only that, people are going to judge you for how you look, right or wrong, whether you like that or not. I mean, take the one in the top middle, 5-minute marketing. Does that person look like he's got decades of experience in marketing? And, you know, if he's doing it in 5 minutes, you know, how much quality can you be providing there? So the other thing is people are going to naturally, it's a human nature thing. When they put your face on there, they're either going to identify with you or they're not. They're going to like you or they're not. And it's unfortunate. But, you know, you ever watch The Voice, Scott? Oh, Scott may have muted himself. Anyway, if any of you have ever watched The Voice, there's a reason why they do these blind auditions. And so that people don't make a judgment about the artist based on how they look. They want it to be purely about their singing talent and how they sound. And I think there's something very similar that goes on in podcasting. I think you're much better off not putting your face on your cover art and not making it all about you. Instead, have an engaging graphic that speaks more to the subject and the content that you're sharing. So you don't want it to be all about you because it's really not. You got to move on. A little tip for those of you that, you know, may have started podcasts a long time ago, or even if you maybe have done it recently, are you aware that you get 4,000 characters for your podcast description as it displays on iTunes and all the other platforms? You should be using every one of them because of SEO. That is the only way people are finding you when they're searching in the different podcast directories, is either based on your title or your description. So use all 4,000 characters and, you know, infuse that with all kinds of great keywords that you think people would search on for their areas of interest or their pain points that you want to be found for. So it's got to be all about the listener. Your description should be what's in it for them, what's, you know, it's about the listener, why you're uniquely suited to deliver the message that they want to hear, and then what your plan is for the show, what kind of content you're going to provide them, what kind of format, what people can expect on a weekly or daily basis, whatever it is you do. And don't script it. I actually would, if you haven't written your description yet, or if you're thinking of rewriting it, just speak it. Don't even try to write it out and script it. Speak your way to it. Spend 5 minutes recording, you know, what is the listener going to get from the show, why you're uniquely suited to deliver it to them, and then what they can expect from the show going forward. And if you just record that 5 minutes each, like 15 minutes, your description will write itself. So just a little tip there. SEO, it is really all about SEO at the end of the day. I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. I love podcasting. I love the power of podcasting, and the fact that I speak into my listeners' ears on a weekly basis, they like me, they trust me, and they want to hear what I have to say. And that's very powerful. But there's a whole lot more people out there searching for things on Google than are listening to podcasts. And SEO is the key to that. And it's also, you know, in your description, but then I'm going to talk a little bit more about SEO later. Your intro and outro, if you don't have one, you know, we do think having one is great, but less is more. You know, you want people to binge listen to your stuff. And I can't tell you how many transition podcasters I find who've been doing it for a year or more, and they've got a 45-second, 1 minute long. I've even had one with a 2-minute long introduction.
Wow.
You're going to drive people crazy with that if if they listen to back-to-back episodes. You're going to make them want to throw their phone out the window.
You know, what's funny, Tom, is Steph and I have been kind of binge watching the old North and South series with Patrick Swayze from back in like 93, 94.
Yeah.
And the intro music, the intro credits are always like 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
It just drives you bonkers. I can understand a minute, all right, but 2 minutes long, I'm like fast forward. So that's such a great point is, hey, get straight to get through the intro and go from there, right?
Absolutely. We really believe less is more. We recommend 15, 20 seconds for an intro to your show. You know, maybe the very first episode, if you want to have a longer one that's your premiere episode and you want it for some reason to provide a little more information or content there, you can. But for most of your episodes, let's just, you want to have it because it is professional. And when people start, when they're driving or maybe they're at the gym and they're playing an episode on their app, when they hear it, they can be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm on the right show. This is the one I expected to play versus another one they might have been wanting to listen to. So that, just make it familiar, credible, and get on with what's important. So what was my point here? Oh yeah. So you are going to become the voice of authority here, guys. The power of podcasting. I mentioned it before. It's incredible. The voice of authority. Malcolm Gladwell, who is a prolific author. Many of you know him or have probably read his books. He started a podcast. I think he has two now, but he started this first one, Revisionist History, a few years ago, and he was interviewed on one of the late night shows. And the host said to him, you are a prolific author. Isn't podcasting kind of small time for you? Why wouldn't you just write another book? Because everyone you write is a New York Times bestseller. He's like, well, you're right. And he quoted a friend of his. It wasn't even Malcolm Gladwell who first said it, but he quoted a friend of his that said, well, the difference is, though, people think with their eyes, but they feel with their ears. And that's so true. I was talking about it a little bit before, the power of podcasting, of speaking in someone's ear every week or, every day. It depends how often you podcast. They really get to know you, even though you don't know them. And your listeners that keep coming back, they like you or they wouldn't keep coming back. So they feel with their ears. It's really true. You get into people's, hearts and minds. You definitely, you serve them and they will be incredibly loyal. And then you are the voice of authority. Equipment. I'm not going to go off a lot on equipment. Scott and I talked a little bit about it earlier today on another episode, but I recently, many years after starting podcasting myself, and I'll tell you, when I bought my equipment the first time, I spent like $1,100 on equipment. And at the time, it might have even then been a little overkill, but today it's way overkill. With a good laptop computer and a good software like Zoom, you really don't need to have a lot of expensive equipment. A good quality microphone is really the most important thing you can have. And, Scott made a note to himself earlier today. It's probably time to replace his Yeti because the Yeti really isn't the standard anymore. And they haven't kept up with the times. And, in my opinion, not the best microphone. But I bought like 10 different microphones earlier this year and did an updated evaluation of them and tested them all. And I've created a blog post here at podetize.com/Mike that you can get to, where you can not only see and learn about all the different mics that I tested, but you can listen to audio clips of each one. I recorded the same thing over and over on all the mics, and they're unedited, so you can hear the audio quality each one records and make a judgment for yourself as to which one you like. Recording quality. So this is sort of an old school thing. I mentioned it a little bit before. There are gurus out there that will teach you, hey, your car is an ideal recording environment because there's fabric all around and there's no hard surfaces and all these curves. Well, I really don't recommend it. There's only, out of all the hundreds of podcasters we work with to produce their shows, there's only one that I think is wise to record their episodes in their car. And that's because he's a heating, ventilating, and air conditioner contractor. And the only time he has to record episodes is when he's driving. He actually lives in your neck of the woods, Scott, in Austin. And when he's driving from job site to job site, he often has 20 minutes, a half an hour, 40 minutes on the road between jobs. And, he's running around all day long, especially this time of year, doing work in his business. But he wants to serve his community, and the only way he can do it is recording in his car. But you know what? There are ambulances that go by and, horns honking sometimes. And his audience respects it because they know he's practicing what he preaches. He's on the road, a working man, doing his job, and he's authentically him, so they respect it. But in general, most listeners will not appreciate the quality that you have when you are recording in the car. It's not the best environment, no matter what some of those old school gurus tell you. So you're better off recording in your home or in your office. Authority thieves. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier. iTunes, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, Podbean, almost all of these platforms, even the social media platforms, guess what? They're in it for them, not for you. So, it's great to have a huge audience on Facebook. It's great to have a ton of LinkedIn connections. And you do want to promote your stuff there. But you want to get people off of those platforms and onto your turf, which is your website. It's not even your podcast. Like I said, Libsyn, Podbean, SoundCloud, all these places have a web page for your show. And they all want to be a destination for listeners, is why they're doing it. And they're using your content to try to gain more listeners. But what we always recommend you do is use your content to own your own authority and to get people into your domain. So just a recommendation there. And then your own domain, talking about your website. This is where Scott was mentioning Wix earlier. We work in all the different website platforms. We've had experience with all of them, and we've seen over time which ones serve the owner of the website better and rank higher in Google keyword ranking and in bringing unique visitors from Google to their website every day. Hands down, the best platform that we recommend, the best platform we believe is out there and we recommend is WordPress. Wix, Squarespace, all these sorts of other platforms that make it, I would agree, a little easier to create a website for, the do-it-yourselfer, for sure. There are things in the structure of their websites and in their systems that actually block Google from analyzing, blocks their bots. Remember I told you got to appeal to the bots? They block their bots from being able to get in and analyze all that data and give you full credit for the content you're creating. And when we move a lot of websites from those platforms to WordPress, just precisely because of that. We didn't intend to get into the website creation business, but it ended up being a natural byproduct of serving our community well. So we just saw so many people underserved and overpaying for website work. And so we had to get into it. And therefore, we learned a ton about it. So I highly recommend WordPress as a platform for that. And SEO obviously being the main reason, and this is, again, our funny little image of the bots. But if you're not friendly to the bots, you're not going to be seen, heard, and found. Google does not discriminate. I want everybody to understand that. It does not matter if you're a Fortune 500 company or an independent entrepreneur just starting out. Google will look at your website and analyze your content independently and blindly by their algorithms. And everybody has an equal opportunity. It's one of the things I really like about Google. Everybody does have an equal opportunity to get ranked. Now, people are going to pay for ads in Google searches and show up above the organic search. But people that search are pretty savvy. They understand those top things on the very first page are ads they're being served. And if they don't want ads, they're going to scroll down to the first organic items in the search. So you have absolutely as good an opportunity to be listed in the first position on the first page of Google search, first organic position for any keyword phrase. It's just a matter of producing relevant content, putting it out there in the best way possible, and putting out a consistent amount of content on a regular basis. You can't just dabble in it. You got to do it all the time. And fortunately, if you're a podcaster, you could speak your way to it. It's really a wonderful thing. So here's going to be a couple eye-opening facts about the bots. 1 in 5 Google searches every day, Google has never seen before. Did you know that, Scott?
I did not know that.
Every day, 20% of the things people type into Google search bar, Google has never seen before.
Wow.
Now, it's a staggering stat because there are literally, I think it's like 30 or 40 billion searches every day in Google. It's ridiculous how many there are. But It's because there are new terms being created. People type things in different ways, and they don't spell things right, and they use grammar that is what their mind is thinking or how they would speak it, not how they would write it if they were writing an article or a book. And all those search terms are valuable. And the thing is, when Google gets a search term it's never seen before, it still tries to give results. It gives the most relevant results that it can. So my point here in telling you this is that when you put a post on your website, it will get ranked by Google. It'll be crawled by Google and indexed in their system the same day. It doesn't take them long to realize new content's been published and to rank it. But Google continues even after that to assign new keywords to old posts. So these blog posts continue to serve you and serve your site visitors over time. Wow. It's not just a one and done thing. So you want to be where search happens, and most search happens on Google. You want to be when my thing stopped working here? Hold on. When search happens. And, most people, I argue, if they're searching, if somebody's desperate for information, people either search when they're interested in finding something or they're really desperate and they have a pain point and they have a need, right? And when search happens, it's usually 2 a.m. on Google, right? So you want to be when it happens. And the way you do that is to have blogs. So this is a great slide. It's a little old. It's a couple of years old, but it's still relevant today. 55% of small businesses have a blog. But look at this. 84% of people spend more than 3 hours to create a single blog post. That's a lot of time. And you know how long that blog post is? The average post length is between 500 and 700 words, but Google wants longer form content. These days, having blog posts that are 500 to 700 words long is not enough. It's not going to have impact. You're not going to get enough credit for it and enough value out of it. That's why the old school show notes summary post just doesn't cut it. It's not going to rank on much of anything. So when you record a podcast, if you speak like me, an average speaker, you're going to speak about 150 words per minute. So in 20 minutes, you would have a post, if you converted it to text, that would be about 3,000 words long. So you'd be over Google's minimum. And if you have an hour-long one that's 5,000-6,000 or 7,000-8,000 words, no problem. Google loves it. It will drive a lot more traffic to your site. Here's another tip about your graphics, not only for your show, but for your blog posts. And these are graphics examples on the left side here from some of our podcasters. Notice there's an ingredient of their podcast cover art in the corner. And then the major image is something that's actually more relevant to the episode, to the subject being discussed. You want to have a variety from episode to episode of color, text, and shape because you want to stand out. Got a really cool sequence that's going to play here in a moment with somebody who was or is a PR consultant and is a what I would definitely call a PR expert. But when you look at her blog feed on her website, and this is true of a blog feed on your own website or think of your social media feed, if you post every episode up there, some people think you want all of your branding to be very consistent visually. Problem with that is that when you scroll down a feed and you have these consistent graphics to have a consistent brand identity, people go through your feed and there's really not much different. And if this were me, I'd be like, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, I've seen that before. Keep going. And you're forcing people to actually stop and look and have to read to determine, have I looked at that post before? Have I listened to that episode before? And it's really not effective. So keep that in mind. And so this client of ours, Susan Harrow, she had this aha moment when we pointed this out to her because she advises her PR clients when they do videos to, if you're going to record a bunch of back-to-back videos or video episodes, she would say, bring a bunch of different outfits. Or if you're, if you're men and you're only your torso's on it, or even a woman, your torso, is going to be on it. Have a bunch of different shirts or different blouses to change in between videos so that people see something new when they look at the video and they don't think they've already seen it. Same thing applies with podcast episode art and or related blog post art. So that's what I have to say about your graphics and measuring your stats. You've got to measure your stats. You've got to know how your show is improving, and that means how your platform is improving over time. And part of that is your podcast. Hopefully you have good statistics on your podcast, but you also need to measure the statistics on your website. How many keywords is your site ranking on? How many unique site visitors do you have to your site every month? And is it increasing over time? That's just one of the other things that differentiates our hosting platform on Podetize from all our competitors. We have an integration with SEMrush. We pay a lot of money for the commercial API integration. And we give you your website statistics on our dashboard right beside your podcast statistics, so you can measure your entire platform. This is one of my favorite tools. Remember earlier on I mentioned about follow-up? This is follow-up. And this is the kind of graphic we create for every episode when we produce our clients' episodes. And we call it Ego Bait. This is for Mitch Russo's show, Your First 1,000 Clients. The 11 is not part of the graphic. This is like my tip number 11. I think there's only 12 here, guys. So we're almost through. But this is a quote of something Mitch Russo said about David Corbin that makes him look really good. And we send an email on our client's behalf to their guest when every episode of theirs publishes that gives them the link to the blog post, the podcast, gives them all the graphics for the episode, and this image we call Ego Bait. Because do you think David Corbin shares this with his following when we give it to him? You're absolutely right that he does. And we started doing this about 2.5 years ago. And once we did, social shares by guests more than tripled, because it's all about the guest. But it's in the podcast host's brand, so it promotes their brand as well. So that's we do this for every episode. Highly effective, and strongly recommend you do something like that. And then this is a little bit about one thing about Podetize that just sort of illustrate it. We're recreating this graphic, so I apologize for it. It's really old looking, but new one's coming soon. But again, you can monetize your show from episode 1 by promoting your own stuff, your own services, products, books, courses, events, tickets to events, whatever, or affiliates. Doesn't have to be just your own. In all your episodes, they can go in and come out with the push of a button and can go anywhere you want. It doesn't just have to be in the typical places. You can have, we put ads within the guest interview or between the interview and the host close, whatever. But again, just in and out whenever you want. So, a lot of times people are always asking, when can I monetize a show? Well, if you're going to monetize with sponsored ads and get sponsors, you really got to the point where you have a minimum of 10 or 15,000 downloads across all your episodes if you're using a system like ours. If you're not doing that, if you're baking them in, you've got to have at least 10 to 15,000 downloads across just your new episodes in that month. So it's a lot easier to reach those numbers when you use all your episodes and they're being listened to, even the old ones. But you can monetize with your own stuff right from day one. You don't have to wait. It doesn't matter how many downloads you have. I'd rather you have an audience of 100 regular listeners who are dying to listen to your next episode than have 10,000 or 100,000 listeners that are casual and aren't really very relevant and focused on what you have to say. So the ones that are focused on you are going to respond to any calls to action or offers you make them. So you may as well make them and use your podcast to do it. So that's how you raise yourself up and have a bigger platform. And so again, this is some recommendations. Your web traffic growth, your keyword growth, these are keys. These are fundamental. get more social media engagement by, when we create an episode, there's like 10 different elements you can use to promote on social media. And don't forget, get your guests to help promote you. Bringing people to your website, get more growth of your list, and they're more qualified because they've self-selected. Remember, this isn't the shotgun approach. People have selected you on Google by what they type, and what they type is matched up with some of your posts. That's how they clicked and got to your website. So these are going to be qualified people coming to your website. You increase your views, your listens, you get what we like to call it stickiness with all the different ways you serve your community. You can mine your audience for clients, sell products, promote events, or, like I said, promote your own stuff or joint ventures you may have. So I think, let me double check. I think that's about it on mine. Yep. So here is just, so we call it becoming bingeable, right? So this is our podcast on the left, Feed Your Brand. We have other episodes we call Center of Influence interviews, which are interviews specifically with very high level podcasters that have achieved really significant success through their podcast. Right now, they're all in the same feed on Feed Your Brand. We're going to spin off the Center of Influence episodes into their own show here within a couple months. So with that, I'm going to stop the share, Scott. And
can you do me a favor? Can you bring it back up one more time?
Yes, sir.
Quick recap on those 11, 12. Just run through them. We'll just put it a second or two for those that didn't write those down because it's so good. So
okay. Can I go them in reverse order?
Yeah, let's do reverse order.
It's either way. I mean, I can do it the other way, but all right. So promoting your own stuff. Definitely, that's how you can monetize the fastest. Ego bait. Incentivize your guests to help promote your show, increases your audience, increases your reach, gets you new listeners, new followers, and eventually new, hopefully, customers, clients. Measure your stats, not only your podcast, but your website. It's critical. It's part of your platform. And if you're not utilizing your website now as much as you should, I highly recommend you do it. You will get a return on your efforts there. I got to go back. Okay, text, color, and shape. You want a variety of it. Don't use the same graphic template over and over. The brand experts don't like it when I say this, okay? Because they want, you want a consistent brand message. We have a style guide. All of our brand is done this way. No graphic would be different like this. Well, you can do that if you want. It's your show. But I highly recommend you mix up the color, text, shape, the images so you stand out. That's the whole point. You need to rise above the crowd. Blog post, more than 2,500 words per blog. And this was about SEO, really. The searches being, number 8 is SEO. And all the searches in Google and your opportunity that's your best opportunity to be seen, heard, and found is SEO, not only on the podcast platforms, but on the larger web because of your website. WordPress is the recommended platform for your website. Can't stress that enough. Don't fall prey to authority thieves. Everybody else, every other platform on the internet is trying to hijack your authority, and they're very good at it. They make you think they're serving you, but they're not. Recording quality does matter. I find more often than not, there are some rare exceptions, I will admit, but more often than not, recording quality matters. Be intentional about it. Doesn't mean you can't record on the road. Actually, a hotel room is a fine environment, as long as you turn off the air conditioner so it doesn't make a lot of noise. But it's a fine environment to record in with the right microphone and the right computer. Equipment, check out podetize.com/mic for our mic comps. I do have recommendations, but you feel free to make your own judgment. Voice of authority, recommendations for professional intro and outro. Less is more. SEO as it relates to your podcast description. If you have a podcast description that is 2 sentences long, go back and change that. You're not being found. Write a description. Remember that exercise I recommended? Record. Spend 15 minutes. record 5 minutes on each of these. What's your show about? What's in it for the listener? Why are you uniquely suited to bring that message? And what can people expect from your show? Meaning, what's it going to be like? Is it going to be interviews? Is it going to be solo casts? Is it going to be a combination? What are you doing for them on a regular basis? And number one is get your face off your cover art. It's not all about you. Make it about them. Make it about the subject. So there you go.
Good stuff, man. Laney said definitely good stuff. All great nuggets, guys, and that's one of the things we want to talk about. Is so many people think of one thing, especially that face thing. I'm going to make my face the biggest part of it. They don't know you from Adam. So take away the face.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's not, I know we have this, and by the way, one of my number one rules in business is no politics, right? And I live that. But I'm only saying that because what I'm about to say is not meant to be political. And it is, we have so much going on in our country with, a big divide, and some of those are along racial lines. It's not a racism issue, but it is a human nature issue, right? If I'm a white guy and I see cover art that has a white guy on it, I may be more likely to click on that. It's not an intentional, it's a subconscious thing. But if pink is my favorite color, I'm going to click on a pink color. Yeah, right. It does that too. It's all human nature stuff. And so people don't realize we self-select, and usually self-select away from things we think we're not going to like. And putting your face on there is, unless you're Oprah, right? Or you're some nationally known figure, or even in your industry, your name is a household name, your face is recognized, then I would not put your face on your cover art, and have a graphic that represents what it's about, that is, that jumps off the page, that look, wow, that's cool. Let me click that, right? People always think, well, it's my show. It's a point of integrity. I need to be willing to have integrity and be the face of my show. Well, I respect that, but your cover art, I would highly suggest to recommend that your cover art is not the place to do that. Your website might be. Remember, you're trying to get clicks and engagement and get people to try your show. So don't give them a reason to self-select out. Makes good sense. What questions do you guys have for Tom on here that are watching or join us? Jason Bird says hello from Facebook Live, as by the way. Hey, Jason. Thanks for watching. Bird Chronicles is good stuff, people. He's got some great stuff. The Bird Chronicles is really, really good. That's his podcast. Jason's doing a great job with the show. I really love the one he did with his son. I thought it was a really great episode, too. I agree. Good. Let's see here. What are the surprises from you guys? I mean, one of the things that, Tom, that you see, you want to talk a little bit, because I know somebody texted me and said, what do you guys charge to do a lot of the production stuff? If you don't mind, I'm happy to share it. Sure. Okay. So let's talk about production, because it's probably the most, I'll quickly go over hosting after that. So production, we sell episode production, and now everything we do, I'm going to not include video. It's easier with audio. So if you just record audio, we produce the audio. We have professional audio engineers make you sound your best, your guests sound your best, syndicate that, convert it to the blog post. We create the unique graphics for every episode. We put it in your website for you. I want to make sure that's clear. We're not just giving you material and leaving it up to you to put it there. We put it there for you, configured for SEO, all the links embedded. There's so much to it, including the guest communication and the ego bait going out to your guests when it publishes, and they get a follow-up reminder email a week later in case they missed it or were traveling. All that is as low as $99 per episode. But we don't, I want to be clear, we don't do monthly charges, because, Scott does like 3.5, 5 episodes a week. Other people do 1 a week. Other people do 2 or 3 a week. It's all over the map. So we don't do monthly charges. And then what happens when you take a break and you don't publish? You don't want to be paying for something you're not using. So we sell episode production in packages of 5, 15, or 25. You buy them, you put them on your account, you use them at your pace. But the more you buy, the cheaper they are. So $99 an episode is when you buy a pack of 25. And if you're doing one a week, it'll take you maybe about 6 months, a little less to use it. If you're doing 3 a week, it's going to take you 2 months, and if you're doing 5 a week, it's going to be a little over a month. And we have customers in all those ranges. And then if you do video and we edit your video and put it in your YouTube for you and configure it for SEO and the whole thing there too, that's $20 additional per episode. It doesn't matter what level you buy at, it's just $20 more per episode for the video part. Then for hosting, we charge $49 a month for hosting, unlimited. We don't get into these tiered plans. These other platforms that you can pay $10 a month or even have a free account, and then you find out that free really isn't free. And once you store a few episodes in their system, you got to upgrade, all that. So $49 a month flat. But that doesn't include the ad insertion. I want to be clear. But what it does include, what, Scott, we didn't mention in this, our platform gives you 5 show feeds, 5 identities for that same subscription price. So if you have seasons of your show, or you get over 300 episodes and you've got to have the older ones available in a new feed, if you didn't realize that, once you publish episode 301, episode 1 falls off of all the podcast distribution channels. The entire podcast delivery system is built around 300 maximum episodes. So you have to put up a second show identity to make your older ones available.
Scott's volume 1.
Oh, did you? I'm just being told, Scott, your volume 1 just got created because you needed another volume. So anyway, so we give you 5 for that same flat fee. That could be used for different shows or flavors of your existing show, whatever you want. And then $99 a month if you use the ad insertion and swapping. So it's, a little more expensive to use the ad insertion, but if you're promoting something and monetizing in any way, that $99 becomes not a big concern very quickly. And I'm sure there's other things. Oh, and again, remember we have the web stats as well. The web stats we provide on our dashboard would cost you $99 a month if you went and subscribed on SEMrush to get that on your own. So you get it as a part of your hosting with us, even at the $49 level. So monitor your whole platform. So anyway, feel free to reach out to me. I'm tom@podetize.com. Or you can go to podetize.com/inquiry if you want to book a call with me where we can talk about your show. If you give me the information of your show, I'll check it out ahead of time and come to that call with some thoughts. And of course, I'd love to hear about what your goals are for your show and see how we can support you in getting more out of it.
Good stuff there. One of the great things, somebody asked here, Stephanie asked a question here.
Oh.
I always love listening to Tom. After the bit on how we would start over if the note market changed, I'm really curious how Tom would approach starting over. He had to do in this age of podcasting. No one knew who you were.
Starting what over? A show or my business?
If you had to start all over, brand new with a show, yeah. Well, what would you do?
Okay. If I had to start all over, and I'm doing this with a couple of customers right now, actually a common business associate of ours, Scott Merrill Chandler, who has a new podcast coming out right after Labor Day called Are You Effable, which actually means fundable, for those of you that are wondering. And if you have a business and you want to learn how to get funding or how to be how to make yourself and your business in the right condition to be fundable, and there's so much to it, I can't do it justice. But I would do what Merrill's doing. Banking up 25 episodes, launching with 25 episodes on day 1. That's what I would do. I would backdate all those episodes so it doesn't look like you dropped them all on that one day. If you're going to publish one a week, I'm going to make it look like they published for the previous 25 weeks. And by the way, guys, if you didn't know that, you can do that on any podcast host. You can schedule a post to appear like it published in the past, or a podcast even, to appear like it published in the past. The credibility that gives you is when somebody finds your show new, the first day it's available on iTunes or wherever you listen, they go and see, wow, there's 25 episodes. If they see that we're all dumped on one day, people are going to wonder, I wonder when they're going to publish a new episode or if they're going to publish new episodes. But if you backdate them so it looks like you've been publishing one a week for 25 weeks or 2 a week for 12 weeks or whatever the frequency is, then they're going to believe, oh, look, they've been publishing consistently for all this time. they're probably going to keep doing it. And I'm investing my time in a show that's going to keep providing me content. So there's a credibility factor. So I would launch with 25, and then whatever number of episodes I could possibly record and publish in the first 8 weeks, I would do. If that's 2, 3, I'll tell you if it were me, I would do 5 a week for the first 8 weeks. And then if I'm not going to continue doing 5 a week after that, because I just can't keep up with that pace, then I dial it back to whatever that is I could do, 1 or 2 a week, whatever that is, and then do that consistently going forward. The reason I'm saying this is that iTunes and all the platforms are algorithmically driven. And while there are many factors, and there are other people in the industry that probably won't agree with me on this, but from experience, this is what I believe. The number of downloads of your episodes is the primary factor that gets you in the charts on iTunes and gets you to be featured in New and Noteworthy. It's not a person making these decisions. It's numbers that are being analyzed. And how many downloads you've had recently is the number one factor. Yes, it's good if you have your views. Yes, it's good if you have ratings. But I don't think, and it's good if you have subscribers. Some people have said in the industry, well, you've got to get so many subscribers a week in order to be in the charts. I don't believe that. From the numbers that we see from all the podcasts, and we're talking millions of downloads every month, I don't see that subscribers has a big effect, but the number of downloads does. So your podcast will get more visibility within the podcast channels the more episodes you have. Not only that, now move to your website. The more content you have on the website, the more keywords you're going to rank on, the more times you're going to come up in Google searches, the more times people are going to click and come over to your site, the more thousands and thousands of unique visitors you're going to get to your site every month without paying anything for Google pay-per-click or advertising on Facebook. This is organic search traffic relevant to you. So the faster you can record content and publish it, the better you are, and the more then eventually, so the initial, get to 25, get to 50 episodes as fast as you can, because that's a critical mass of content that is going to organically bring you more listeners, more viewers, more people to your website, more people listening to your podcast. But then be consistent going forward, whatever that is. You can rank on iTunes publishing 1 show a week. You can. But the people that launched with 1 show and published 1 a week after that didn't rank on the charts until about 2 years in, when they had 50 episodes. Because think about it, every new subscriber, when you have 25 episodes on day 1, they subscribe, boom, that's 25 episodes downloaded. Every new person, 25 episodes downloaded. That's how the numbers benefit you in the system. Now, if you can't swing 25, I get it. That's fine. Launch with 12. Launch with 10. Just don't launch with 1. It's a credibility factor too. People search. They have an option of listening to a few podcasts. You have 1 or 2 or 3 episodes, and other shows have 10, 12, or 20. Which one do you think they're going to try first? Probably the one that has more content. Another one of those human nature things. So anyway, that's what I would do. And engagement. That's the other thing I would do. Scott, are you there? Your video's kind of frozen. Hope it's not me. Uh-oh. Well, I'm going to keep talking, hoping everybody's hearing me. Maybe if somebody wants to type in the chat if you can still hear me. So engagement is the other key thing I would do with my show from the get-go that I didn't do as early on in my first shows. Have ways and reasons to engage with your, okay, great, thanks guys. I think Scott may have dropped off, but I'm going to keep going because I'm here and I'm into this. So here we go. Thank you, Sharon and Stephanie. So engagement. You want to have reasons to take people from your podcast episode, listening to your audio or watching your video on YouTube, whatever it is, to leave that medium when they're done and go to your website. You want to have reasons and ways to engage them. That could be something free that you're going to offer them if they go to your website and they fill out a quick form, so you get their email address and they're on your list. But then it doesn't just have to be all about you getting their info or giving them something free. You can have engagement. You can have quizzes, polls, encourage feedback, request it, especially early on in your show. What other content might they want to hear? There are so many different ways to foster engagement with your audience, to actually communicate back to you and have you reply back to them. Stickers are good too. Yes, Stephanie. There's swag you can give them if you're willing to ship them something. I think Scott does this amazing thing. I forget what he calls it. And when he comes back, we'll ask him. But he has people sign up and paying, I think, $99 a month to get a swag bag from him every month. And what he does is when he has people interviewed on his show that are authors, he gets them to send them a quantity of their book. And a lot of times they don't even charge him for it. Sometimes he might pay a little something for them, but at $99 a month, he has a little budget to pay and get things in that he sends out to these people. And he sends them out to the members. And so, that's another level of engagement you can do where, people can not only be listeners, but actually pay a little something, help support the show, but they get something out of it. You get the books, you get stickers, you get, all sorts of things. And I know Scott's had great success with that. It could be mugs. It could be, he does different things all the time. And Scott's really good at shopping for things. They get discounts on training calls. Stephanie's putting in the chat. You probably all are seeing that, but thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. So, but it doesn't have to be something you're charging for either, though. There's ways to get engagement that don't have to cost anything. And it's just giving your audience an opportunity, inviting them to engage with you in a bigger way. So I highly recommend you do that, and that's what I would do with my show, in addition to the launch strategy. You can also serve up the opportunity to do weekly member-only a coaching call if you're a coach of any kind. Sorry guys, I have a dog-friendly office in case you didn't notice. She just piped up, but yes, Lucy, that's here. You want to take her off there, and I'll put her on screen so everybody can see Lucy before we go here. And here we go. So here comes Lucy. Here's the office pup. It's our Cocker Spaniel. She's about 7 months old. Brings a lot of fun and variety to the office. And actually, use your pets. If you have pets, oh my gosh. Lucy is on our company Instagram channel, and I can't even tell you how much engagement that gets. People love pets. So anyway, just a little side note. But any way you can foster engagement is going to help you. The other thing I would do, if you have a type of show where your guests might also be ideal clients. Now, this isn't going to be true for everybody, but for some of you it will be. That's a whole nother ego play. We call it a VIP strategy of interviewing who you want to be your potential clients, because you build rapport with them and you serve them throughout the whole process. You give them exposure. And then after, with the follow-up, you then have a very warm lead to pitch. So for your services or whatever it is that you would want to engage them in doing. So keep that in mind too. So let's see. Is there any other questions? I'm not seeing the Facebook. Are you seeing the Facebook by any chance? Can you get on it? See if you see any more questions on Facebook. And any of you might have any more questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer. I don't need to be anywhere anytime soon. So anything at all? No silly questions. Oh, it might be a group. Maybe we're not in the group. I may not be able to check the Facebook. I don't know, Stephanie, if you can see the Facebook from your side or your phone, maybe if there's any question there, you can feed it to me. But if not, okay, Stephanie's going to check, so we're good. And if there's no questions, we'll wrap it up here soon. But your opportunity to ask anything you'd like. Of course, Scott's calling me on the phone. Hey, buddy. Oh, no. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up. I don't see any more questions. Okay. Thanks, Scott. I'll let everyone know. All right. Bye. All right, everybody. So Scott having an internet issue, and that happens. We had ours go down 2 days ago at 2:30 in the afternoon, and it was ugly the rest of the day. So, hey, what can you do? All right. So I guess no new questions on Facebook. No more here on Zoom. Thank you all for attending Scott's Note Camp. And don't forget notecampmm.com to go. And if you want to participate in the event in Orlando at the end of September, I will be there. I'm very excited about that. And thank you, everyone, for attending. It's always fun to do these things, especially when you have a lot of people attending live who are appreciating it. So wait, one more Q&A thing. What does that say? Okay, great. Thanks, Angela. Glad you enjoyed it. Okay, everyone, signing off. Thanks so much. Scott will be back, I think, in 2 weeks is the next one. He's off next week. So thanks a lot. Bye.